Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Crubcast. My name is Kevin, also known as the Golden Bolt. In that intro right before you is my dog Barley and famous Twitch streamer JTAR9 holding a pair of underwear he found on the boardwalk. Hope you enjoyed that.
Sir.
One of our new
Rest
Crub
in
intros
peace.
from our vacation together. I'm also here with my fellow co-Crubbers who are on vacation with me. That Trav guy. Hi, Trav.
Hello, I'm purple today.
I'm here with M, who is not purple today.
I could be.
You could be purple. You might be painted purple. Are you the
We don't
right
know.
shade of purple, though? Because we have to ask our resident Spyro fan and Canadian who was not with us on vacation, Brody. Hi, Brody.
Hi. You're never the right shade of purple. You should know this by now.
All right.
This was a mistake.
I don't like where this went. Hi, everybody. How are you all doing today? We're talking today about linear versus open world games. Which type of level design would win in a fist fight? So we'll do a quick...
Which one are you? Facebook quiz.
Which one are you? We should make a Facebook quiz of that. We'll do a quick once-over of the correct answer of whether linear or open world games would win in a fist fight. There's only one right answer, and then we will not discuss with nuance. Em, what do you think?
Yes.
Trav, what do you think?
What was the question? I was sleeping.
Brody, what do you think?
Linear games, those are pretty cool, but there's only a lot you can do in them. Open world games, you can do anything except when they're bad.
That didn't answer my question about fist fights, but you know what? I guess that's okay.
The question was fist fights?
I missed the part about fist fights.
I've been saying that every single time that we've talked about this topic so far. Can you tell that we're prepared this week, folks? This is the train wreck episode of the Crubcast. I hope you're excited for it. The reason that this kind of came up was, a lot of us like platformers. All of us here like platformers besides Nico, who is not here. So he can't speak for himself.
Which is how we like it.
But also, Brody, you and I have been playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and we're not going to talk spoilers for that game whatsoever. But we've been going back and forth about that game's open world design and the issues we have with it. Brody, do you want to hit a little bit on that in 30 seconds or less?
I can try my damnedest. So basically, Final Fantasy VII Remake was pretty awesome because, it's just this really focused game that kind of knows what it wants to do, and even when it does let you out and to explore a bit, it's like, here's a few side missions in close proximity. Do them or don't, we don't care, move on. Final Fantasy Rebirth is like, we're gonna have the same amount of content, basically, but we're gonna spread it out across this, Sonic Frontiers open zone design for, no reason other than to make it spread out and to make the world feel bigger. And I get why they do that, and they kind of have to do that, because of where it is in the FF7 story, at least to my understanding. I've only played the remake version. But, also, it just kind of makes it worse compared to the first one? Or to remake, rather?
That was really close to 30 seconds. I'm actually really proud of you.
Hell yeah.
That's kind of where I was with it, too, is 7 Rebirth starts out in a really interesting way in that it's the least pretense... It drops all pretenses of a video game that's a sequel because it just starts as if it's Act 2 of Final Fantasy VII. And I think that's fascinating. I think, Em, you'd have a lot to chew on specifically with this game because of how much it tries to avoid just being a sequel, to the point that there's not even really any major plot for the first few hours of the game. It's like the downtime after the climax of the first act of the game, which was the first game. And I find that
exciting.
Super neat. I think it'll be really cool to play this game. Mechanical tweaks aside, because there are some mechanics that change that kind of make it a little weird to go from game to game, I think is what's going to be the case. But it's almost like, I don't know if any of you played Final Fantasy 13. I did. I stopped right around when you get to the open world, because there's 40 hours of linear hallway, and then you get to the open world, and they give you just wide open grasslands and say, figure it out, we don't care. That's what this game does, but it's a separate game. And it works a lot better now, I think, because they kind of have a better idea of what they want to do. But it's just interesting seeing us go from such a linear experience where those open world sections were kind of cherished in Remake because they were almost like a small Yakuza-styled open world where it was condensed and crafted, to getting to this game, and they throw you in an open world, and the towns are still kind of nice. I like the towns that I've seen so far. And then there's
towns are really good, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's just a bunch of grasslands, and there's not really anything to do in them besides Ubisoft towers and the most obligatory of design pieces taken from every other AAA game. I've said to Brody, this is probably the game that I think made me finally say, yeah, you know what, AAA gaming is broken. And we can talk about that.
The towers are so baffling to me because, like, it's not like they give you something to do, right? Like Far Cry, you know, climbing the tower is the thing to do, but like that's kind of, you have to use the mechanics that are the focus of that game in order to do that. Or Assassin's Creed or, you know, Horizon kind of puts their own spin on it. This is like, use the Final Fantasy VII Remake mechanics to slowly make your way up a set of ladders, the top of a tower, maybe get a move medal,
button,
and then go back down. It's
so obligatory, and it's weird.
And it's not even like it like unfog of wars the map. I think you maybe get like an icon or two of like there's something interesting
points
over here.
Of interest,
like
which isn't even helpful because the points of interest. So I've talked about Ghost of Tsushima a lot. One of the points of interest is an area where if you go near it, there's an owl that follows you like a bird in Ghost of Tsushima to tell you where there's a thing. So you know where it is, and then when you get there, they're like, "Oh, go follow that owl." And that's owl,
really lame.
Yeah, and like
that is wow. That's sort of indicative of like the worst of all of AAA excesses, right there.
It's the weirdest I think I've ever felt playing like a new AAA game, because it feels like at first the first thing that this game makes you do is push around crates, which I thought was parody because it's
like Shenmue.
No, like every crate in a Sony game, like a cart, I guess is the better word.
Yeah, gotcha.
You push around a cart, but there's a rope attached to it because it's a vacuum. You're sucking up things with a vacuum at the start of this game in a flashback, and it's
like blocked that out of my head.
It threw me off at first because I thought it was a parody. I was like, oh, this is really funny. They expected you to want this high octane opening like Final Fantasy VII Remake does, like 7 itself has, and they open you up on the biggest lull possible, which I thought was hilarious. And then they keep doing things like that with other open world AAA tropes. And I'm now wondering if they weren't sure what this game needed to be.
I had seen you say to Derek of Good Vibe Gamings that it reminded you of Xenoblade, I think, or was it Xenosaga?
The world itself feels very Xenopilled, for lack of a better term, because it's just a bunch of open grassland with some enemies here and there. But Xenoblade has a lot more to the world. Like, this just kind of feels like, oh, there are some collectibles on the ground like Xenoblade has. There are occasionally enemies, but most of the places, at least in the first couple areas, most of the actual open area is not really anything that's discoverable. There's not like a cave that's really cool. If it is, it's marked on your map. Again, it feels almost like what you'd expect a Ubisoft RPG to be. And the reason I say that is because, Trav, I know you're a fan of the checklisty nature of games like Far Cry. And so I'm curious what that has, what that elicits from you when I say that phrase.
So actually, I mean, without getting too deep into what I may or may not be spoilers, I don't know. One of the first things I saw on Twitter a lot was like, wow, they just give you a lot of side quests.
There are a lot more side quests in 7 Rebirth, for sure.
And
they're good.
My immediate thought was like, ooh, I kind of want to play that. Like, I already wanted to.
Yeah.
I wanted to beat original 7 before I play Remake. But, and you know damn well I'm going to play the first Remake before I play Rebirth.
Yeah, of course.
But it's just like, ooh, okay, hold on. Final Fantasy checklist game? Don't mind if I do. That's been my thoughts.
No,
like,
that's exactly it.
Give it a shot.
It's interesting because I'm enjoying it. And Brody, it sounds like from what you've told me, you're a little further than I am. You're enjoying it too.
I am, like, I don't want to like sound like I'm bad mouthing the game when I give my sort of complaints or thoughts, because like for all intents and purposes, it is a very good game. It does what it tries. It does what Final Fantasy VII Remake, like the first one, did so well when it tries to be doing that. And when it's not trying to be doing that, it's just sort of having this like identity crisis. And I think that's the most interesting thing of it.
Which is kind of thematic if you think about how 7's story goes.
Yeah.
Actually, wait.
It is.
No,
and
you know what? I'm on board again. I changed everything I said. You've just convinced me, actually. Holy shit.
Well, it's funny because 7 Remake already sort of has an identity crisis of its own, right? Where it's like, this isn't the gameplay of the original. This isn't like the style. It's the style of like the Advent Children movie more than the game itself.
I don't think that's an identity crisis, to be fair. And I don't want to get too into the weeds on Final Fantasy specifically.
I feel like that's the least offensive.
I just mean that like it's yeah, but I just like it's a game where like I know that a lot of people who played the original Final Fantasy VII were like, oh, I wish it were more like that Ever Crisis remake or whatever. That's like the gacha game on mobile, where they're like, I wish that existed, but without the gacha mechanics.
Yeah,
well, yeah, but I hear like essentially there's no perfect package of a remake of this game, and I can understand that from that perspective.
Again, that's getting into the weeds of Final Fantasy VII.
Especially when they're still selling the original game on modern stores.
Yeah, like that's exactly it. Like there's no point in making a perfectly graphically impressive remake 1-to-1 of 7 otherwise. So that's why remake exists, because what's the point of telling the story of 7 if you can't have the same impact as 7? And changing the story of 7 is how you do that. That's into the weeds of this game specifically. I didn't want to get too into that sort of stuff.
True. Well, yeah, I'll bring it back to just what about the open stuff, which is just like, obviously 7 has its own sort of 7 Remake has its own sort of style, and it does things in, and then Rebirth just like sort of adds more onto that while sort of taking away from that focused experience. And so I think my favorite parts of Rebirth so far have been when they've actually gone back to that more focused sort of.
Yeah, I agree. So Em, I want to jump over to you because I know we're talking about a game that is a year or so away from you probably being able to play it. From what you've heard of this, aside from like the specifically Final Fantasy VII Rebirth-y unique sequel-y things, is there anything about like what we've said about this open world nature that sticks out to you, or anything you want to jump onto from that?
It's such an open-ended question.
I'm trying to give you the floor here. I wasn't sure how to throw that up. I'm not going to lie.
That's such an open-ended question. I think with Rebirth specifically, just to kind of address some of the things that were said there, I am so excited that it's not just a remake, right? Like, what an exciting thing to do. Yeah, this game has been out for 25 or 30 years or whatever, and you can go play that still.
27 years now?
Yeah.
I think.
So it's been out for
27 this year.
Yep.
There you go. It's been out for almost, longer than most of the people watching this have been alive, right?
I was literally born the same year.
Right. So, like, this is, something where I've talked with regards to remakes about whether or not the job of a remake is to be a 1-to-1 adaptation, a literal remake, or if its job is to tell the story and make you feel the same way again, right?
Yeah.
Like, should I be playing Final Fantasy Remake and feel the same way that you did when you played Final Fantasy VII in 1985 or whatever, right? Like, should I feel the same way, or should I get the exact step-for-step story? And I've always felt that it's much more of a goal, and an ambitious goal nonetheless, to try to make me feel the same way. And if that means that you have to change the story a little bit, then you should do that, because the original still exists.
Yeah, and that's how I felt when going way back, and this is not a spoiler for Remake at this point. I think it's a well-known thing. Justin had messaged me at one point, and this is before 7 Remake came out, and he said, yo, I just heard that 7 Remake's a sequel. And I went and pre-ordered the game that moment, because I was like, now I'm into it. I didn't care before, but that's ambitious. That's brave. I like that. And that's exactly what you were saying, Em. And I think what makes Rebirth interesting is that it still seems to be following that trajectory. It's just also hitting on every open world trope on the way there, as if they listened too much to people that said the game was too short at 35 to 40 hours. And that's where I start questioning a bit of like, okay.
People actually say that?
Yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah.
Oh I had a comment on one of my videos, and this is a different case, obviously, but a couple days ago, where they were upset that there was a rumor that the new Ratchet & Clank game that's 5 years away might only be as long as Rift Apart, which is the longest game in the series. And
I'm so sorry. I've been... I might have even touched on this last week or however long it's been since we saw each other in person.
Run it back.
I'm so tired of all of this idea of like, I think it started with the 1 hour per dollar spent on a game.
The classic.
Idea. And I'm just like, just enjoy the game, maybe have fun with it.
Yeah,
I look that argument is so funny to me because I look at like the idea of going to a movie theater and watching a movie, and it's like I'm paying like $15 for like 2 hours right there.
Yeah, like what are you saying, that your time is only that valuable, like $1 an hour?
Some people want a buffet and they don't care how the food tastes. You know,
that's true. Last time I went to a buffet, I went to a buffet, I was shitting for like hours. Like, I can't say that. I was pooping.
You can still say shitting. It's only the...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there is a certain amount of qualitative sort of, I don't know, rubric, right? Where the cost is a part of that. So if a game costs $70 and it feels like a $10 game, I think that that's a valuable metric. I think that it's equally valuable to look at a game and say, yeah, it was $70 and it was an hour. I beat it in an hour.
Yeah, that's an issue. If a game should be as long as it needs to be, but there is like a cost benefit to it.
Sure. And so I think that there is a reason to do that. When people are looking at indie games, though, they do tend to do this. Oh, it's only 15 hours long and it costs $39.
And this game was in development for 40 years, and it's still, I only played it for 3 hours, and I beat the final boss. No, I didn't do any of the side content. Why do you ask?
Yeah, it's insane. One of the things that we saw in the past year was the newest COD got this, right? It's only 4 hours long. And I would kind of argue that almost every COD has been only 4 hours long, unless you're playing, on a higher than easy difficulty, because like the set pieces are small and it's very, very, very tight, right? It's a game that you can beat in 4 hours pretty consistently, throughout all of them, almost. Maybe the longest one's 8 hours. And these are full price AAA games, but because there's a multiplayer attachment to it and most people are playing the multiplayer, they're not thinking about that. But with the most recent one, it wasn't like that because of Warzone.
And well, another thing that you just hit on is like people seem to feel that games used to be longer or that they used to get more out of them, which is I think part of it. They used
to be worse at playing them.
There's that element of people being worse at them, but I think it's also, how like as you get older, the amount of memories you make per year technically kind of decreases a little bit. As far as
time feels faster.
Time feels faster, exactly. That's because all of the big key moments in your life happen when you're young, and the games you remember when you were young playing for 50 hours, turns out you just either sucked at them or you were doing that because you were playing it over and over again and you forgot. And
sure, and there's also a side thing there where if you're really old, right, you may be talking about arcade games, which were designed specifically to be unbeatable because of quarters, right?
Yeah.
Like they needed more quarters.
Literally.
Turtles in Time is a game that I recently-ish, like a few years ago, actually, I guess it was longer than that. Wow. I played it with PK Sparks. Do you remember?
Case in point. Yeah, it was at the offices that one time.
Yeah, so I played Turtles in Time the whole way through, and I think it ended up costing me like 100 lives, but it was free. Right?
Yeah.
Because it was like one of those arcade one-ups or whatever. But it was 100 lives, which means that would have been 100 quarters to beat.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And you would never have done that as a kid, so you would have gone back and again and again.
That's at least $50, bro.
And speaking of, Trav, go back to what you were saying about what buffets do to you, because I can't use that as a seg. Give me a segue.
Dude, so I went to this buffet. It was called like Coco's. And they had pizza, only tiny pizzas.
And if you want only tiny pizzas, go to patreon.com/crub. I wasn't sure where you were going, so I'm taking it there.
I was just waiting.
For as little as $2 a month, you can get an infinite amount of content. A buffet that will make you shit like Trav did. Even worse, though, because we'll be talking to you.
And we all texted each other in the morning saying, dude, are you guys shitting? And we're like, yeah.
That's what we do. In the content that you can get exclusively at patreon.com/crub. It'll be like you're shitting alone, except instead of texting your friends, you'll be listening to us playing Mario Party or watching every episode of the Pokemon anime or talking about music with our resident musician, Nico All Hail Buckets, or live, I shouldn't say live, pre-rendered movie watch-alongs. You guys watched, what was it, Dragon Ball, M?
Yeah, that should be out as soon as I can finish editing it.
Yeah.
It'll be out.
So there's that. A bunch of content, an infinite amount of content that we put out for everyone.
For infinite wealth.
You can support for as little as $2 a month. You can get some of that content for $5 a month. And if you want to be an awesome supporter and get all the content you'd ever need from all of our stupid asses, it's $10 a month over at Patreon.
You should only ever watch Crub. The end.
It'll feel exactly like you have friends, even if you don't.
We'll be your friends, except pairs socially.
Nope.
Also,
I'm not even going to say it. I won't be your friend.
You can also, if you do want to be our friends, join the Discord. We'll be friendly with you. I say friendly because
what is this whole parrot social thing going around?
It's a new.
Well,
it's
we
a
don't
new,
like birds
It's a new
anymore.
social media platform. You re-parrot things.
Okay.
So going back to the linear versus open world.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel that it's such a bad argument to even have, right? I think it is dishonest from the beginning because it's the same sort of argument to me as what's better, television or movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are different stories that are better in each format, right? You could not make a Better Call Saul that was a 2-hour long story and have it have the same impact as a 8-hour long or 8 season long 6 whatever. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't do that.
Okay, but open world Better Call Saul.
And open, but right. The idea here is that if you want to have, let's say, Far Cry, right? It makes sense to have that be big and open world because you want to be able to have this sense that you are cleansing a dictatorial whatever, right? Like you're removing them and
yeah, with every part of the map you beat, you are making progress.
Yeah,
every
right,
little thing
reaffirming
you do.
it. And so while it's not linear, there is still some linearity to this, right? We see this in almost every Ubisoft open world game where they have preferred paths, right? Whether it be because there's levels. Well, if you go into that zone, the enemies are too high level. You can't go there yet, right? Like it's still fairly linear. There's an expected path, and you can go beat your head against a rock, but you're not expected to. You're supposed to go and do this other thing instead.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about like true open world, what do you have? Like Zelda, right? Like Zelda's
That's
maybe
the first thing that came to my mind.
I was even going to use the example of the two most recent Pokemon games because there was Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is semi-open world. There are like open zones essentially. But in them, you have level gating. You have like a path that you're suggested to take. You can go off that path if you want to. And then you have Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, where they give you full freedom to do all the objectives in any order you want. And you can pretty quickly be able to climb any rock you want forever and glide in 21 FPS and do all these things with a really bad looking map because they didn't finish the game. And like that's a good example of it. I was even going to say also as far as like the bad type of open world / linear game design, and I'll call it bad, is some of the Red Dead Redemption 2 missions. I remember we were talking about this with other friend of the podcast, Mini-Me, where some of the missions would be specifically like, oh, you can't go this way, even though it's an open world game. They would not let you off the path to go a different route to the objective. And
it's not open world if you're riding your horse and you try to go up above because you want to get a better angle, and it says, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You're supposed to go on the left side of this, but I want to go on the right. It's open world. Let me have my fun. If I fail my mission, let me fail my mission, right? Yeah. It's the same sort of thing as in some of the I guess maybe like tactical shooters like Rainbow Six and stuff. If you shoot something wrong, it instantly fails you and stuff like that, right? And having that in an open world, boy, what is like, okay, so I'm a firm believer that format should fit purpose, right? I've always felt this about basically everything. Format should fit the purpose. And if you're doing open world, then what you're signaling to me as a player is that I have the freedom to do whatever I want, to live in this world, to make it my own whatever. If you give me a character creator, then I expect to be able to make the ugliest thing in the world if I want to. I expect to be able to name it whatever I want. I want to have that freedom that you are giving me, right? If you're not giving me that freedom, then why are you giving me the format for the freedom? If you want to tell a really tight story, then do that. I'm so fine with a really tight story.
I think there's something to be said about engaging with a game or any media. There's got to be a balance of you engaging with it on its terms and it being able, if it's a game, to engage with you on your terms to some capacity. And I think that's a lot of the things that, like, the more railroady games tend to start failing at nowadays, because they want to have it both ways. And if you're going to engage with this podcast on its terms, you should hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube. You should listen to us on all the audio platforms. I forgot these plugs earlier. So please do the things. Subscribe as well if you're not subscribed on the YouTube. There's a bunch of bonus content there as well. That's always fun. Brody, I was going to jump over to you because there's another game that we talked about recently that goes into the platformer side of the linear versus open world game design that you and Chris MykonosFan have played that has been on my radar that I haven't played yet, and I've been listening to you guys talk about it, and I'm interested in it. That is Penny's Big Breakaway.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I'm finally at a point in the game where I feel like I can talk about it more definitively.
Paint the picture of what this game is first.
This Penny's Big Breakaway is
You said paint.
Paint's Big Breakaway is it's like a Mario 3D World sort of style game, but with Sonic style mechanics. So not Sonic mechanics expressly, but like they use the yo-yo in that game in a way where you're sort of able to chain moves together and able to sort of keep a sense of flow and momentum. Now,
this is the Sonic Mania team, for those that maybe aren't familiar.
Yes, and it shows, because you can definitely tell it's a game made by them. And I guess it's their first attempt at something 3D. And I think, now that I'm at the point in the game where I'm going after the S ranks, or the game's equivalent of S ranks, it has clicked a lot more with me, because now stages that previously took me 10 minutes to get through and find all the collectibles are now taking me like 2 minutes to run through really quickly in like a satisfying keep my combo up kind of way.
Yeah.
The problem on initial playthrough is that they pepper in these the collectibles, but there's 6 of them in a level because there's 3 just tokens you find, and then there's 3 like missions you do. But it's like a linear 3D path. It's not like a Mario Sunshine or a
it's not a hub world, it's a stage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like even with like a game like Mario Sunshine, right, where like that game is open, each of its worlds are open, but you have a mission to do in it, and then you get booted out, come back in. It's not like that. It's like they're just on the pathway. It's kind of like in like the Kirby platformers, where they might have like a little like bloom all of the flowers to get like a collectible thing or whatever. It's sort of like that, except they put it in a game built for speed, and it's not conducive to that, which goes back to the whole age-old like Sonic game question of if this game is about going fast, shouldn't its level design facilitate going fast? And the weird thing is that the level design does, but the mission design doesn't.
I had said, and this isn't really related to the linear open world part, but I had said that the way that you guys had described the game when you were talking about it the one day made me think that the first time you go through a level, it shouldn't show you a timer, because that inherently pressures you to want to go faster. Like it's not a countdown, it's a count up. But even like being timed makes you implicitly want to go faster. Yeah. And that means that you're
that's why timers are in arcade games. So, hurry up.
And so I would love to see a version of these sorts of games where maybe the first go around, they rank you at the end. They'll tell you your time, but they don't show you ahead of time. It's a blind timer almost. But Trav, I think you were interested in Penny's Big Breakaway at least a little bit.
I don't know nearly as much about it.
Sure.
Yeah, I am interested in it.
So
that was just to make sure I'm on the same page. That was the one that just kind of shadow dropped, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like people knew about it, but then it's like, surprise, it's out now.
Yeah.
I want to say that was pretty close to when we left for Crubcella. So
it was exactly that week. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I haven't even gotten close to trying it.
Same.
Yeah. I don't really have much to say.
I guess my question for you is the perspective of taking 2D linear, turning it into 3D linear, but adding shades of open world level design by way of missions. How does that click for you? Because again,
is Mario 64 open world?
I think it's
so that
open zone. I guess is the way that we're going to call it. Maybe
there's a middle ground, right? Like and it's not like a binary or like a 3-point thing. It's like a full spectrum of like how linear to open world is this thing? Because you can look at a game like Mario 64 or Odyssey or whatever and say like these have smaller scale than a full map but bigger scale than like a linear level type deals, right, where you're meant to explore them. And personally speaking, I think that like that's my favorite approach to level design, is that like open area that's meant to be explored and built to be explored, but not so vast that like you're just covering grassland for 20 minutes trying to get to like the next thing.
Oh, I love Sonic Frontiers.
God.
I think there's a couple of different games that do these things, right? And sort of, I don't know if I would say prove the lie of the question, right? But like, there are games that I think we can point to and say, could you have made it in a different way, right? Could you have made a linear Halo, or an open world Halo out of Halo 2, and would it be good? Could you take Titanfall 2 and take that and be open world? And I think no. I think that having a linear, tight, whatever. Metal Gear Solid 5, could you turn that into a linear game and have the same effect? What about Spider-Man? Could you have a Spider-Man that doesn't swing through the city and have that sort of open world, I'm going to go PS1. And help? Well, yeah, but like, could you have that?
Spider-Man's an interesting one because there definitely are like games that try a different approach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the one that maybe does the different approach between open and linear the best in recent memory for me is Metro, where it is very much a linear game with open world segments. You're getting on your little, train, or you're going through the sewers and you're going to the next open world segment, and you're completing this open world segment and then going to the next. And I think maybe that's the best way to do it, where you can have this sort of a tight, story that's very clear, and these are the things that are happening. But otherwise, I don't know. Again, it needs to fit what you're trying to do with that. If you're doing a Spider-Man, it makes sense not to have tight hallways.
And that goes back to Rebirth, kind of, because Rebirth, I think, is the game that maybe proves that the most, because I don't know what that game's trying to do by having open world segments besides appease people that wanted them.
Like,
yeah.
I could see, because obviously I've never played the original Final Fantasy VII, but I know that there's like, after you're done with Midgar, you go to like the big world map,
yes.
and you like
kill
go
him.
around or whatever. So like I guess my perspective on it from someone that's just playing the remakes and sort of interpreting them backwards in a sort of like weird archaeological way is like, oh, this is the part of the game that was open originally.
It is.
So this is how they're choosing to translate that experience.
And that's important.
And I don't know that it like works for me fully, but I get what they're doing.
It's important for that experience. It's also important because in 7 you would have had, in 7 original, 7 classic, I'll say, you would have had random encounters. It's all a pre-rendered map, and you're huge on it because it's the Final Fantasy maps. You're exploring as a huge-ass character on a
relative
map.
To your character, it is a very small map.
Yes, and there's not really much in between A to B, and this is the game fleshing out that A to B. It's there was a picture that Chris sent me of, I think it was the Junon town, and he showed me the picture of like the exact same area right outside town in Rebirth versus in the original game, and one is you're standing on a bunch of a flat green texture and there's a big cannon, and the other is a fully realized city. Flaws and all, because this game does have some visual flaws to it, which is kind of the nature of being a AAA open world game at a point, because what can you do?
The water doesn't ripple!
That's the one. I'm going to... All right, you know what really grinds my gears? Digital Foundry.
No.
I'll say it. We're going to go there. I like Digital Foundry a lot.
Wait, did Digital Foundry actually talk about that?
That was them. Because I was watching, because Brody and I were talking about...
I thought it was just some random guy on Twitter.
We're going to go. We're going to do this. You know what really grinds my gears? First time we're doing this segment. It is... Brody and I were talking about how 7 Rebirth has some weird visual settings to it because the 60 FPS mode runs at like 1165p. and there's a weird blurry what's his name, Snyder cut filter over it where it looks like there's a bunch of Vaseline.
Got it.
Yeah, it really does look like that.
It looks a little messy, and then you go to the 30 FPS mode, and if you don't start on that mode, it is the choppiest camera I have seen in a modern game. I swear to God. And
now I don't know if it's a locked 30 FPS mode is the only thing, because I've been noticing later in my playthrough when I'm in areas that like don't have a lot going on in them, like it feels like it's going at a higher frame rate.
I don't think there's VRR.
I
don't think there's VRR for this game yet, unless they patched it in. But so you're going between like a game that looks like a game that trying to be Xenoblade, weird shadows and all, essentially, in the 60 FPS mode, or if you don't start with the 30 FPS mode, there's a camera that doesn't have motion blur. I turn motion blur off in every game I use.
I hate motion blur. I agree.
This game needs it. That's how choppy this. I will show you when we're done here. I'll throw it on just to show you, Em. It is so goddamn choppy. And so I was talking to Brody about it, and he was telling me some of what he saw in the 60 FPS mode. And I then watched the Digital Foundry video to see what I'm missing here. And in that video that they broke it down, there were two videos. One was them complaining about the embargo being too strict, which is great for a game with a game that is trying to retell the story that has the greatest spoiler of all time. Of course there's a strict embargo. Don't bitch about it. Be like us and bitch privately. Two, the second video starts complaining about things like, so 7 Remake had a bunch of areas where instead of having backgrounds, they'd have like PNGs. And that was the compromise to fit on PS4. This one has fully realized 3D areas and everything. And some of the lighting in the backgrounds, this game looks washed out at times. And I don't love that about it. It was an active choice they made, and I don't love it, but it's there. But while talking about that, they jumped into complaining about the water not rippling behind Cloud as he swims through water, or Barrett, the guy with a machine gun hand, having to climb very choppily as he jumps up, like the yellow painted walls.
Right.
And so it's stuff like this, and this is the moment that I realized that AAA gaming is actually now broken, because that's the expectation people have now, is that every single thing must be perfect. They complained about the foliage not moving as you walk through it, because that was a thing in the demo and an earlier build of the game, and they took it out probably to save on performance. All these sorts of little things that people are now expecting, and that's why games like Spider-Man cost $300 million. That's why they remade every That's why they remade every single asset to avoid a thing like what happened in Rift Apart, where people complained that the foliage didn't always move exactly the way it should. Like this is the life that AAA developers are dealing with, and I'm glad that we saw Sony Interactive's head Herman Holst, formerly of Guerrilla, say, "Yeah, we got to rethink it. Maybe we shouldn't care much about what people think anymore." Because
you shouldn't.
Like it's excessive.
Really
so glad more people are realizing that.
Yeah, and this is the thing we've all of us here have kind of known. People in the live chat at twitch.tv/crub_official streamed every Tuesday with pre and post show access. Hitting all my plugs late today. This is stuff we all know if you're in this audience or you'd hang out with us and hear us ramble about this crap all the time. But it was refreshing to hear it said after such a dire and dour week or month for the gaming space with so many layoffs because of games like Spider-Man that did go over budget because Sony gave them a budget and said, hey, do whatever you want with this. You got to spend the money.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. Anyway, so the point is, Digital Foundry, I'm calling you out because you went snobby on this particular game. Like, the reason a game like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth exists the way it does is because they're trying to appeal to the widest audience possible, because if any one group of people doesn't like a game, it's going to be all over Twitter and it's going to be a controversy.
And I think that they should take it a step further with the third game. I think that they should only appeal to what they consider to be the mass audience by making it a gacha. Oh wait, hold on.
They should remake that. They should remake Dirge of Cerberus. That'd be great. That's the shooter.
I don't even
That's the
remember
shooter.
what that is.
That's the third-person shooter.
Okay.
Final Fantasy VII.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, Em, you were going to say something a minute ago related to my ramble there. You have the floor.
Was I?
I think so. About the game developers starting to finally not care about being the most perfect looking visual thing possible.
All right, so at the risk of the risk of alienating our entire audience, I don't care what anybody who watches my content thinks about my content, right? This is not something that I care about. I don't care because I don't think the average person, A, knows what they want, or B, can critically think about it. And I recognize that is saying that most people don't know what they want and can't think critically.
He's calling y'all stupid.
That's true. Not stupid, right? Like, I don't think most people really think about things critically, and I do. And if you spend a lot of time thinking about things critically, I think you'd start to think about things critically, right? Like, if you've never sat down and really thought about, like, what makes a film good or bad and what the meaning of all these things is, then you're going to come away from it and go, wow, that was good. And that's it, right? That's the sum total of your thoughts.
I'm jealous of those
people, I just think Ant-Man and the Wasp is peak cinema.
I just don't know why people are trying to say that Metal Gear Solid is a political franchise.
When people said 7 Remake was political, I lost it. 7 was seven's about eco-terrorism. It's always been political. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
Most of these things are, right? Like, there's politics and everything, and
God,
you're
can
not
you
gonna
believe
get away
it,
from
guys? The new X-Men show might be woke.
Right? Yeah. The thing about discriminating
is it
against
because
people
it's about
for how they're born.
it's an allegory for it's because there's a non-binary character.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So I don't really think that most people think critically, and that's fine, right? Like.
Look, you work your 9 to 5, you come home, maybe you don't want to think critically.
Yeah, I was just going to say earlier, I'm in some ways I envy the people that don't. Like, I would like to turn brain off.
I want to hear the rest of what M is saying after I interrupted him twice.
That coffee.
So I don't think that I really care what people think about my content, right? Like, I like to know that they enjoy it, and I like to know, maybe they didn't enjoy something. So that I can improve it. But when it comes down to it, I will never ask somebody, well, what kind of video would you like to see from me? What should I do next? Because I'm not trying to please you. I know better than you, right? Like, I know what kind of content I can produce that you would enjoy better than you know the kind of content that I can produce. Because I had a lot of people come to me and say, oh, well, you should really do a review of Fortnite. And it's like, really? Really? You should see me do a review of Fortnite? What does that even mean?
Do me a favor. Say the word hello to me.
Hello.
You think that voice should review Fortnite?
Right. So, I get these things where people are like, oh, you should do this, or make a sequel to a video I've already done, and it's like, what would I say? You just want me to say the same thing again. You just liked what I gave you.
Fortnite.
So I don't think that people necessarily are the best the customer, the consumer is not necessarily the best at deciding what they want. And we've seen this many, many times with these sort of big companies that have come up and produced new and revolutionary innovations, right? People thought that they did not want touchscreen phones. And now everybody has a touchscreen phone. If you don't have a touchscreen phone, that's very weird. But when they first came out, no, nobody would ever want that. People don't want that. They would never want that, right? And now they have it. There's a lot of things where the consumer is just wrong about what they think they want. And this is proven time and time again by, right, I can see that you're pointing the exact same sort of thing,
minions?
Right?
No, it's Slippy's Uncle Grippy.
Uncle Slippy.
I know.
It's the same sort of thing. There's a reason why focus groups are asked very specific questions, right? They're not just said, do you like it? Do you not like it? It's very specific because they're not really looking to see if you like it or don't like it.
Yeah.
They're looking to see if you think that the secondary, main character feels a little pervy or not. And that's it. That's the only thing they care about. And if you do or you don't, great, check mark, check mark, check mark. But there is, I think, a very strong case that people don't actually know what they want, ever. They don't ever know what they want. It's the same reason where you say, hey, what do you want for dinner tonight? I don't know.
So I'll bounce off that too, because I think Slippy's Uncle Grippy is actually a good example now that I think about it, because that's a game, Star Fox Zero is a game that people asked for, in that people said, we want a game that uses both screens of the gamepad and the TV. And that is the one game that does it, besides being a mini-map, and people didn't like it because it was too hard to look back and forth. Turns out, yeah, maybe it wasn't a good idea, but that's what you asked for. But B, it's like, I mean, we all get these comments of when we have a video about a game, so like for me it's Ratchet & Clank, for Trav it's Doom, for M it's Doom Eternal. For each of us, it's, I wish they would go and make this game again and remake it with all the content they took out and cut and put it back in and made it good still. And that's the most...
Okay, mother, get into game design
That's
then.
the most swear jar nebulous...
Oh, I mean, crap!
You were so good. You were so good. But now I got to write you down and take your paycheck.
I gotta go to the principal's office.
Chris is going to hit you.
Wait, my paycheck? No!
That's a paddling.
I need that quarter. Sorry.
No, but like it's like seeing people voice what they want. Obviously, some people do know what they want, but most don't. A lot of times with games, I don't know what I want, and I do this for a living. You know, like
I think the mature thing, well, at least a moment of growth for me was realizing that I don't know what I want.
Yeah, like there are games that I'll play like a Helldivers 2. I didn't know I wanted a game where you pave super democracy against giant bugs, and I've played Earth Defense Force, so I should have known that. But then I played it and I was like, this is exactly the game I want. I want to die a bunch while doing better Starfield. You know?
Let's do that for the Patreon.
We should do Helldivers 2 as a stream someday. Maybe we will. Let us know if you want that. We're not going to listen, but let us know.
Anyways, tell us what you guys want.
Brody, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm stealing your Starfield mention to talk about Fallout New Vegas. Because we briefly brought up earlier the idea of like the RPG level gating of like, don't go this way because you'll get your ass handed to you. And so like New Vegas does that, and it wants to
so good at that.
It wants to funnel you down south so you can do like a J-shaped hook back up to New Vegas, right? And like most people are going to do that because if they go to the quarry, they're going to get their asses handed to them. But if you're like a player that can think like beyond just the idea of fighting the enemies in front of you and are like, okay, well, how can I get past this in a way that like will make sense? You can do that, and you can just like beeline straight to New Vegas. The only problem is when you get there, you're going to be gated by like not having enough money or skills and like the few things that you can do to like get past the door.
Yeah.
So you might still have to like go around and do stuff. But if you want to, you can, like there's a way, right? And then you can like find your way to the Kings and do their side quests instead to like get in like the back way or something like that. It's been a while, but and like there's a similar system in what's the one the New Vegas people made that
Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds.
Yes.
Thank you, Kevin, for saying it as it. That one has a similar system where it's like, oh, you're supposed to, after you do the first area, you're supposed to go to Groundbreaker and like then go to Rosewood to get a key that will let you go to Monarch in the main place. Or you can go to the Concordia landing pad and you'll get your ass handed to you as if it's the quarry from New Vegas. But being stubborn, I was able to just like chain my companion stun moves as I ran through like from the Concordia base pad all the way over to the city across the entire map, just screaming the entire time because like they were way too powerful for me.
I'll bounce off of what you said with New Vegas because one of my favorite memories, maybe in all of games, is the moment of I'm going to go north and see what happens at the start of New Vegas. And I saw a Deathclaw in the distance and said, okay, that's fine. That's not a big deal. I then saw what looked like a bloatfly. And I looked at it and said,
that's what I thought Brody was going to bring up.
Like, that's a bloatfly. I can take him. It's no big deal. I'm going to mess around and find a new town north of me or something. I then go into VATS and I see that it's a Cazador. And I'm like, what is a Cazador? For those that don't know, Cazador is based on one of the most painful stinging bees of all time. It's the Tarantula Hawk Wasp, which is a name less metal than this creature actually is. And I went into VATS, I zoomed in on it and said, oh, okay, that's not that bad. I'll let him come closer, VATS him again. I unvatsed and he was in front of me from 40 feet away to me in the next frame. And I was immediately poisoned and my leg was broken. And I understood that I would never not be afraid of Cazadors no matter what level I was. And that game is incredible for that alone because it lets you do it on your terms, but it also tells you should engage on our terms. And that's what a good open world game should be.
But then if you do that and then still make your way to the quarry through that area, the guy even comments, it's like, how the hell did you even make it through there?
Yeah, it's so good. So we didn't really hit super hard on a lot of the linear versus open world fist fight part of the discussion, but it's because it's a very large topic, and I think we just kind of wanted to talk about some of the recent examples
We
of
just wanted to clickbait you. So
game things.
I do want to espouse the benefits of a game like Hitman that just says,
Okay.
we're going to design a bunch of, like, we're not going to go full scope. This isn't going to be a full map. We're just going to design a bunch of, like, really detailed, tight areas. And you might not even, like, you're going to play through it maybe once if you're, like, a casual player. So you're probably not going to see all of the detail we put into this. But if you want to explore, all of that detail is there. And you can tell that there was a real focus on, like, crafting that area to feel alive and vibrant and active with a lot of things for you to, like, play with and do without having to, like, bloat it.
I think Hitman, the World of Assassination trilogy, might be one of the greatest examples of a sandbox that any game has ever had. Full stop. And it's fascinating because it came out of a game like Absolution, which got criticized for going towards linearity instead and following the trends of the time. And the result of that was people not liking that and it coming back around. So it's also very fluid, essentially, is what I'm saying. So seeing a game like 7 Rebirth follow every trend is going to be interesting if you look back on it in 6 years when Final Fantasy VII Relapse comes out. And I'm assuming that's the name of the final one. And when you get to that game and then you go back to 7 Remake and see, oh, this is really linear because it was on the PS4. And then you get to Rebirth and you're like, oh, this has no identity because it was on the PS5. Like, it'll be really interesting to see how the trends have shifted to see what they chase after that. Because a game that starts as parody, that starts with me, in my opinion, thinking it's parodying stuff, ends up not really subverting that whatsoever and just falling into all of those tropes. And I think that's interesting to talk about because it'll be a very different game in 5 years, unlike 7 Remake, I think.
Yeah.
Birdie, there we go. Cool. We're going to move on to the Patreon question of the week. It is from our favorite friend, Chris MykonosFan, who had asked us, because he is a patron, because we also are all patrons of ourselves. That's where our swear
Except
jar
for
money.
me, because my
Foolish not
payment won't
to
go
be.
through.
Well, your swear jar goes for that anyway.
Yeah.
So Chris's Patreon question of the week, and if you want to ask one to us that we answer live on air, patreon.com/Crub. Every single tier of the Patreon, you can ask us many questions as you want, and we put them in a list
Please do,
and we
in
answer
fact.
them. We always need more questions, and if we ever have too many, we'll do a Q&A episode. So ask us whatever you want, make it appropriate, if anything, please. Chris's question is, if members of Crub... This is not appropriate. If members of Crub were established Sonic characters, which one would which be?
That was very funny. That was good.
So I think Nico would be Sonic by default.
Yeah,
Well, so
he's
this-
Hey, everybody, it's me, Nico.
Hey, I'm Nico.
Why can't I drive without flip-flops?
You guys have started doing impressions of Nico as Sonic,
Yeah,
which basically gives it to him.
Yeah, he's
But there's a
Sonic.
long history of Sonic the Hedgehog.
That's true. He could be Shadow, because we know Shadow has.
Oh, no, Sean is definitely Shadow. I'm edgy, everybody.
I haven't
Look
played
at me.
Kingdom
I'm
Hearts.
so chaotic.
Oh, that would work. Sean is watching
I just
live.
saw him in chat.
Yeah, Sean's in the chat. He said stop.
Okay, so Sean is definitely Shadow, though, right?
Shadow
But
is a raw
he's like,
XD pick.
can
I mean,
I-
he's my favorite character in the series. So
Can I
I'm
be-
helping
Ooh, is
myself with
there-
that, but-
can I throw out maybe Sean is actually the OC from Forces?
Oh, that would work.
And it doesn't matter what the
That would
OC
work.
is. He just is the OC.
I want
from
M to be Tikal.
Tikal?
I don't know why, but
Because he's a floating voice.
he's a floating voice. Exactly. I think that makes sense to me. And
Very
and
good.
there's a tragic backstory. Is there?
TBD.
I think. I don't know enough to know if there's a tragic
M's
backstory.
tragic
there.
backstory involves the.
When you live through it, I mean, it's just normal to you.
It involves the warring of the Echidna races, tribes against one another.
So he runs a bowling alley now.
Ooh.
I do like peaches, so that's a thing.
Does Tikal like peaches?
Peach colored.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll give you that. Brody, who would Brody be?
It's a
Who's
question I ask
obnoxious like
myself every
Sonic?
day.
The worst character. Who
Charmy.
is
Who's
the
Canadian?
most hated
Charmy.
Oh, that's
in
too mean.
Sonic?
That's too mean.
Well, no, because I'm not saying Brody's Charmy. I'm saying that the worst character is Charmy.
Okay.
Well, then, yeah, that's Brody.
What does he say? What's his line?
I'm Charmy. That's it. That's all he says. That's his line.
Hey, it's me, Charmy.
I'm trying to think of who. Trav might be Vector.
Chris is big.
Trav has the
I'm a
walk cycle.
detective.
Trav has the walk cycle of Vector.
I haven't paid attention to how I walk. I can't confirm that.
I only noticed it when we were at Crubcella, and the way that you walked scared my dog. Because you just we were trying to take a picture, and like we had it on like a little tripod, and so Trav has to like maneuver past some chairs, and like you like did like a weird step, and Barley did not like that, and he barked.
So Chris is very much big.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Chris would be proud to be big, I think.
Chris is big. Justin is Black Doom.
No, I
created Sean.
I think Justin should be Maria.
Oh.
Because then that explains.
Maybe.
You just want to shoot Justin.
Yeah, because then Shadow's backstory is that Sean's backstory is that Justin died, and that's why Sean became an alien. So that'd be pretty rad, you know.
Yeah.
Can I be the gun truck?
Oh.
Yeah, sure, buddy.
Maybe. Yeah, because then you would chase after Nico.
Yeah,
Being like, do
'cause
things.
He doesn't.
and he'd
accept.
run away.
He doesn't accept my advances, so I just Sonic advance into him with. I don't know what this is. The
I like that.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Did we talk
feel
about
like we're missing
everybody?
I like how we've left Knuckles and Tails on the table.
Well, because Knuckles is
Well,
iconic.
That's where they belong.
If we ever get Idris Elba on the podcast, he'd be
Yeah,
Knuckles.
Knuckles is Idris Elba, exactly. Yeah.
I think we hit everybody, right?
I feel like we did.
Did we?
Yeah, I think
You're the
that's
gun
everyone.
truck. I'm to call. Chris is bigger Maria. Brody's Charmy.
No, Justin's Maria for sure.
Justin's Maria.
Yeah. Or no, Justin could be Rouge. He's got that sex appeal.
He does.
Though no, because Rouge is a secret agent, so Justin's famous. Justin might be Eggman when he's making his announcement. Like, because the world sees him in that moment. You know?
Justin's actually Gerald Robot. Now.
All right.
You want him from a firing squad? I mean, I guess that's Maria too, so.
Yeah. Well, and he invented BioLizard.
Ooh,
I mean, both of them handled the firing squad very differently.
that's true. Maria took it on the chin.
Gerald had to
Really?
like be bound up to take it. I get it.
Maria just really, heart and head into it. Right?
Jesus Christ.
Sonic 3 in theaters on our Patreon.
We had such a good podcast up until this point, and then
I can't wait for Sonic Adventure 2 remake when they save Maria.
Who would be Black Doom? Well, Chimbus in our Twitch chat, we already talked about that one.
Justin's a lot of characters. He's the entirety of the
lot of
Shadow the
characters.
Hedgehog plot, I think, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Wow, Shadow,
poorly
those-
written.
Bye, guys.
Poorly written.
What?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that was it. Bye,
Just-
guys.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. That was proud of you. I don't have a good outro after that.
We need an
should've just cut it
outro.
there.
Yeah, we-
You should've
If you
cut it
know an
there.
outro that we should be using, leave it as the comment because we really do need
Yeah,
one.
one day we'll come up with an
but-
outro. Maybe by the end of the year 1 anniversary, we'll have an outro. We'll see. So yeah, thank you for listening.
What Sonic character are you? Leave it in the comments.
Thank you for listening. Listen
Every
to
time?
another podcast.